They laughed at him. A 10-year-old boy in thrift store sneakers, standing in a building designed for billionaires. They thought he was a joke. They thought he didn't belong. But when the banker checked his account, his face went completely white. The laughter stopped instantly, because what showed up on that screen changed everything. This is the true story of the boy they underestimated. And trust me, you need to hear what happened next. Welcome to the Fortune Files channel. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and share your thoughts on the story, as well as where you are watching from. Let me tell you about the day a 10-year-old boy walked into the tallest building in New York City and changed his life forever. His name was Leo Bennett. Just 10 years old. Small for his age, wearing sneakers he got from a thrift store and a blue hoodie that was a little too big for him. He stood at the entrance of Sterling Financial Tower, looking up at the glass and steel that seemed to touch the clouds. This wasn't a place for kids. This was a place for billionaires. For people who owned companies and made decisions that changed the world. The lobby floor was pure white marble that reflected the golden lights hanging from the ceiling. Everything sparkled. Everything was expensive. And everyone who walked through those doors wore suits that probably cost more than Leo's mom earned in an entire month. But Leo walked in anyway. His small hand clutched a clear plastic folder against his chest. Inside were papers. Important papers. Papers his grandfather had given him before he died. He walked past the regular banking floor. Past the people waiting in line. He went straight to the elevator that said, VIP floor only. A security guard looked at him strangely but didn't stop him. Maybe he thought Leo was lost. Maybe he thought someone would kick him out upstairs. When the elevator doors opened on the top floor, conversation stopped. People turned to stare. A little boy in worn-out clothes standing in a room designed for the richest people in the city. Leo walked to the counter. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. But he kept his chin up, just like his grandfather taught him. "I want to check my balance, please," he said. The room went completely silent. It was like someone had pressed a mute button on the whole world. A woman in diamonds whispered to her husband. A man in a gray suit smirked. Someone actually laughed out loud. The manager behind the counter, a man named Mr. Peterson, looked down at Leo like he was a stray dog that had wandered in from the street. "Kid," he said slowly, "this floor is for serious investors, not for children's savings accounts. You need to go downstairs." Leo took a deep breath. "My grandfather told me to come here. To this floor. He opened an account for me when I was born. He passed away last week, and he told me I needed to come check on it." The word "passed away" made a few people uncomfortable. The laughter got quieter. But the arrogance remained. The feeling that Leo didn't belong there, that he was wasting everyone's time. "Look, son," Mr. Peterson said, not unkindly but not kindly either. "I'm sure your grandfather was a good man. But accounts for children are handled on a different floor. This area is for high-net-worth individuals only." "My grandfather was Robert Bennett," Leo said, his voice steady. "And he told me to come here when he was gone. He made me promise." Something flickered in Mr. Peterson's eyes. Maybe it was the way Leo said his grandfather's name. Maybe it was the determination in the boy's voice. Or maybe it was just easier to prove the kid wrong than to keep arguing. "Fine," the manager sighed. "Let me see your documents." Leo slid the folder across the polished counter. Inside were his birth certificate, an account number written in his grandfather's shaky handwriting, and a letter with an official bank seal on it. Mr. Peterson picked up the papers, barely glancing at them. He typed the account number into his computer, fully expecting to see maybe a few $100s, maybe 1,000 if the grandfather had been generous. He was already planning how to gently tell this kid that his fortune wouldn't change his life. But then his fingers froze on the keyboard. His eyes went wide. His face turned pale like all the blood had drained out of it. He typed again, slower this time, like he was checking to make sure he hadn't made a mistake. He hadn't. Behind Leo, the whispers stopped completely. Someone asked, "What's wrong? Is the system broken?" Mr. Peterson stood up so fast his chair rolled backward and hit the wall. His hands were actually shaking. "Son," he said, and his voice was completely different now. No more condescension. No more casual dismissal. "Who exactly was your grandfather?" Leo looked up at him with clear, honest eyes. "He was the only person who never laughed at me." The manager swallowed hard. "I need to get my supervisor. Please wait right here. Don't move." He rushed away, pulling another employee with him, speaking in urgent, hushed tones. Leo could see them through the glass wall of an office, pointing at a computer screen, making phone calls, their expressions shifting from confusion to disbelief to something that looked like fear. Leo stood at the counter alone, while dozens of adults stared at him. A woman in an expensive dress approached him carefully, like he might break. "Sweetheart," she asked gently, "does your mother know you're here?" Leo shook his head. "She's at work. She couldn't come with me. But Grandpa said I had to do this alone. He said it was important." The woman's expression softened. "How did you even get here by yourself?" "I took 2 buses," Leo said simply. Around the room, people exchanged glances. This wasn't some spoiled rich kid playing pretend. This was a boy keeping a promise to someone he loved. A boy who had traveled across the city alone because his grandfather had asked him to. The manager returned with an older man in a dark suit. The supervisor. His name was Mr. Harrison, and he looked at Leo the way you might look at something precious and fragile. "Leo," he said quietly, "we need to talk to you privately. Is that okay?" Leo nodded. "Okay. But can my mom come?" "Where is she?" Mr. Harrison asked. "She's working. She cleans offices. She couldn't take time off." For the first time, genuine emotion crossed the supervisor's face. Something like respect. Something like sadness. "Then we'll wait with you until she can be here," he said. "But Leo, what we need to tell you. It's going to change everything. Are you ready for that?" Leo thought about his grandfather. About the way he used to sit with Leo on the porch and tell him stories. About how he always said, "Money doesn't make you rich, son. Your heart does." "I'm ready," Leo said. And he was. Or at least, he thought he was. Because what was waiting behind that door, in that private room, was bigger than anything a 10-year-old could imagine. The private room felt different from the rest of the bank. It was quieter, darker, more serious. The walls were wood-paneled, and a single lamp glowed over a large table. Leo sat in a leather chair that was too big for him. His feet dangled above the floor. Mr. Harrison sat across from him. Mr. Peterson stood near the door, looking uncomfortable, like he regretted every dismissive word he'd said earlier. And then a third person entered. A woman in a gray coat, carrying a black briefcase. She had sharp eyes behind thin glasses, and she moved with the kind of calm that comes from handling emergencies every day. "Leo," Mr. Harrison said, "this is Ms. Rachel Foster. She was your grandfather's lawyer." Leo blinked. Grandpa had a lawyer? Ms. Foster set her briefcase on the table and opened it with a soft click. "Your grandfather had more than that, Leo. Much more." She pulled out a thick envelope sealed with red wax. The kind of seal you see in old movies, official and important. She placed it in front of Leo like it was made of glass. "This letter," she said, "was written by your grandfather. It was only supposed to be opened the first time you came to check your account. He knew you would come. He was waiting for this day." Leo stared at the envelope. His grandfather's handwriting was on the front. "To Leo when he's ready." "Am I ready?" Leo whispered. Ms. Foster looked at him kindly. "Your grandfather thought so. But Leo, before I open this, I need to ask you something. Do you want to do this without your mother here?" Leo thought about his mom. She was probably scrubbing floors in some office building right now, exhausted, worried about how to pay next month's rent. She didn't know he was here. He'd left her a note saying he'd be home by dinner. "I promised Grandpa," Leo said quietly. "I don't want to wait." Ms. Foster nodded. "Then we'll move forward." She broke the wax seal and unfolded the letter. The room seemed to hold its breath. "My dear Leo," she began reading aloud, If you are hearing these words, it means I am gone. And it means you were brave enough to walk into that building alone. Just like I knew you would be. Leo's eyes stung with tears. I have protected you your whole life from things you never saw. Your father tried to face those things once, and he paid a terrible price. He didn't leave you because he wanted to, Leo. He left because he had to. Because staying would have put you in danger. Leo's breath caught in his throat. His father. He barely remembered him. His mom never talked about him. Leo had always thought his dad just left. Just walked away. But that wasn't true. Your father is alive, Leo. He's been in hiding for 7 years. And the reason he had to hide is the same reason I'm writing this letter. Because the money I'm leaving you isn't just money. It's power. And there are people who will do anything to take it from you. Ms. Foster paused, looking at Leo's pale face. Do you want me to continue? Leo nodded, unable to speak. You have 3 choices, Leo, she read. 3 paths. And you must choose one today. Leo's hands gripped the edge of the table. Choice 1. You can take control of everything right now. You'll be rich. You'll be powerful. But you'll also be a target. People will come after you. Some with smiles. Some with threats. You'll never be a normal kid again. Mr. Peterson shifted uncomfortably near the door. Choice 2. You can lock the money away until you turn 21. It will be protected, invested, hidden. You'll be safe. You'll have time to grow up, to learn, to prepare. And when you're ready, everything will be waiting for you. Leo exhaled slowly. Choice 3. You can walk away. Reject it all. Live a simple life. Stay free from the danger, the greed, the weight of it. Keep your life as it is. Ms. Foster lowered the letter. And your grandfather ends with this. Whatever you choose, Leo, it won't define your worth. It will only define your path. I love you. I'm proud of you. And I will always be with you. Tears rolled down Leo's cheeks. He wiped them away quickly, embarrassed. Leo, Ms. Foster said gently, you don't have to decide right now. We can. I want to see the balance, Leo interrupted. Mr. Harrison leaned forward. Are you sure? Yes. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, Mr. Peterson warned. I know. Ms. Foster closed the letter. Then we'll show you. Mr. Harrison turned the computer screen toward Leo. He typed in a password, then another, then placed his hand on a scanner. The screen flickered. And then numbers appeared. Leo stared. He didn't understand at first. There were too many zeros. It looked like a phone number or a mistake. $468 million, Mr. Harrison said quietly. And 23 cents. The room spun. Leo gripped the table to steady himself. That's... He couldn't finish the sentence. That's yours, Ms. Foster confirmed. Leo felt like he couldn't breathe. He was 10 years old. He wore thrift store clothes. His mom worked 3 jobs. And he was looking at a number that didn't seem real. Why? He whispered. Why did Grandpa have this much? Your grandfather, Ms. Foster explained, was a very smart investor. He started with almost nothing and built an empire quietly, carefully. He never showed off, never drew attention. And he protected every cent so that one day, you would have choices he never had. But who wants to take it from me? Ms. Foster and Mr. Harrison exchanged a dark look. People who think they deserved it more, Mr. Harrison said. People who thought your grandfather owed them. People who don't believe a child should have this kind of power. Leo's heart pounded. Are they dangerous? Before anyone could answer, the door burst open. A man stumbled in, breathing hard, his face flushed. He looked wild, desperate, terrified. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair messy. He looked like he'd been running for miles. Don't let him see it, the man shouted. Please don't let him see the money. Everyone froze. Leo turned slowly in his chair. And his entire world shattered. Because standing in the doorway, gasping for breath, tears streaming down his face, was a man Leo had only seen in one faded photograph. His father. Time stopped. The air in the room turned solid, like Leo was trying to breathe underwater. He stared at the man in the doorway, his mind refusing to process what his eyes were seeing. This couldn't be real. His father was gone. Had been gone for 7 years. His mother said he left. She never gave details, never explained, just said he was gone and they had to move on. But here he was, standing right there, alive, real, crying. "Leo," the man whispered, his voice breaking on the single word. Leo couldn't speak, couldn't move. His hands gripped the chair so tightly his knuckles turned white. Behind his father, Leo's mother appeared in the doorway. Her face was streaked with tears, her work uniform still on, her hair falling out of its ponytail. She must have gotten Leo's note and panicked. She must have run all the way here. "Baby," she breathed, rushing to Leo's side. "Oh, baby, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you had to do this alone." But Leo barely heard her. His eyes were locked on the man who looked like a ghost. "How?" Leo's voice came out small and broken. "How are you here?" His father, whose name was Thomas Bennett, took a shaky step into the room. Mr. Harrison stood up but didn't try to stop him. "I never left you, Leo," Thomas said, his voice thick with emotion. "I didn't abandon you. I didn't stop loving you. I disappeared because I had to. Because staying meant putting you in danger." "What danger?" Leo demanded, his voice rising. "What danger could be worse than growing up thinking your dad didn't want you?" Thomas flinched like he'd been struck. I know, and I will never forgive myself for that. But Leo, there are people, bad people, who wanted what your grandfather had. And when I tried to protect it, they threatened you. They threatened your mother. They made it very clear that if I didn't disappear, something terrible would happen to you." Leo's mother, Karen, wrapped her arm around Leo's shoulders. "It's true, sweetheart. Your father left to protect us. Your grandfather helped him hide. It was the only way. Then why come back now?" Leo asked, tears streaming down his face. Thomas's expression crumbled. "Because the moment you accessed that account, they would know. They've been watching for years, waiting for this day. And I couldn't let you face them alone." Ms. Foster cleared her throat. "Thomas is telling the truth, Leo. Your grandfather's wealth came from investments that displaced some very powerful, very dangerous people. They lost fortunes when your grandfather outsmarted them. And they've been waiting for a chance to take it back." "How did they even know I was here?" Leo asked. "Banks have systems," Mr. Peterson said quietly, looking ashamed. "Security protocols. When an account of this size becomes active, certain parties are automatically notified. It's supposed to prevent fraud, but it also tells them exactly where you are," Thomas finished. A cold fear crept up Leo's spine. "So they're coming. They might already be here," Ms. Foster said, pulling out her phone. "Which is why we need to make a decision quickly." Thomas crossed the room and knelt in front of Leo, bringing himself to eye level with his son. Up close, Leo could see how much his father had aged. The lines around his eyes, the gray in his hair, the weight of 7 years spent in hiding. "Leo," Thomas said softly, "I know you don't know me anymore. I know I'm a stranger to you. But I need you to listen. That money on the screen, it's not a blessing. It's a burden. It's a target on your back. And if you claim it now, your life will never be the same." "What should I do?" Leo whispered. "I can't tell you that," Thomas said. "Your grandfather gave you 3 choices because he knew you were smart enough to choose. But whatever you decide, I will be there. I won't disappear again. I promise." Karen knelt beside Thomas, taking Leo's hands in hers. "Sweetheart, this is your choice. Not mine, not your father's, not anyone else's. What do you want?" Leo looked around the room. At the lawyer who carried secrets. At the bankers who had underestimated him. At his mother who had worked herself to exhaustion. At his father who had lived in shadows to keep him safe. And he thought about the number on the screen. $468 million. He thought about what he could do with it. The house they could buy. The life his mother could have. The security, the freedom, the power. But he also thought about the little girl he'd seen in the park last week. The one with the torn backpack and the worn-out shoes. The one who looked like she carried the weight of the world on her small shoulders. He thought about all the kids like her. Kids like he used to be. Kids who deserved a chance. Leo took a deep breath. I choose the second option. Thomas closed his eyes in relief. I want the money locked until I'm 21, Leo continued. I want to stay protected. I want to be a kid. I want to go to school and play with my friends and not worry about people coming after me. That's very wise, Ms. Foster said, nodding with approval. But, Leo added, his voice growing stronger, I want to use some of it now. Not for me. For other kids who need help. Kids who don't have what I have. Kids who need someone to believe in them. The room went silent. But it was a different kind of silence. A hopeful one. Karen's eyes filled with fresh tears. Oh, Leo. Thomas put his hand on his son's shoulder. And this time, Leo didn't pull away. Your grandfather would be so proud, Thomas whispered. How much do you want to donate? Ms. Foster asked gently. Leo thought for a moment. Enough to change lives. But not enough to change mine. And just like that, something shifted in the room. Leo wasn't just a boy with a fortune anymore. He was a boy with a mission. Mr. Harrison stood up. Then let's make it happen. But before anyone could move, Ms. Foster's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, and her face went pale. We have a problem, she said quietly. 3 men just entered the building. They're asking for Leo Bennett. Thomas stood up fast, his protective instincts kicking in. How long do we have? Minutes. Maybe less. Leo's heart hammered in his chest. What do we do? Thomas looked at his son, then at Karen, then at the lawyers and bankers who had, in the span of an hour, become allies. We stand together, he said firmly, and we don't let them intimidate us. Because sometimes, courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about standing your ground even when you are. And Leo Bennett, at 10 years old, was about to learn exactly what that meant. Fear has a sound. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet shuffle of expensive shoes on marble. Sometimes it's the low murmur of voices that don't need to shout to make you afraid. Leo heard it before he saw them. 3 sets of footsteps coming down the hallway outside the private room. Confident. Unhurried. Like they owned the building. Thomas moved to stand between Leo and the door, his body tense. Karen pulled Leo closer, her arm around him protective and fierce. Ms. Foster quickly gathered the documents on the table, sliding them back into her briefcase. Nobody says anything about the amount, she instructed in a sharp whisper. Not a word. Understood. Everyone nodded. The door opened without a knock. 3 men walked in like they'd been invited. The first was tall and silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Karen made in a year. The second was younger, lean, with cold eyes that scanned the room like he was calculating threats. The third was broad-shouldered, quiet, clearly security. The silver-haired man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Good afternoon, he said smoothly. My name is Victor Crane. I believe we have some business to discuss. Mr. Harrison stepped forward, his voice professional but firm. This is a private meeting, Mr. Crane. You have no authorization to be here. Oh, I think I do, Victor replied, pulling a folded document from his jacket. You see, Robert Bennett owed my family a substantial debt before he passed. And now that his account has been accessed, it's time that debt was paid. That's a lie, Thomas said, his voice hard. My father didn't owe you anything. Victor's smile widened. Thomas Bennett. I wondered if you'd finally crawl out from whatever rock you've been hiding under. How noble of you to show up now that there's money involved. I'm here for my son. Ah yes, the son. Victor's eyes slid to Leo, and Leo felt his skin crawl. 10 years old, is that right? quite young to be making financial decisions. He's not making any decisions today, Karen said firmly, pulling Leo even closer. Actually, Victor said, pulling out a chair and sitting down uninvited. He's already made one. He accessed the account, which means the funds are now active, which means they're now subject to the claims filed against Robert Bennett's estate. Ms. Foster set her briefcase down with a loud thud. I've reviewed every legal document related to Robert Bennett's estate. There are no valid claims against it. Whatever you think you're owed, it's not legitimate. Let the courts decide that, Victor said casually. In the meantime, I'm here to offer the boy a settlement, a way to avoid years of legal battles that could drain that account to nothing. What kind of settlement? Mr. Harrison asked, though his tone made it clear he didn't trust a word coming out of Victor's mouth. Simple. Young Leo transfers $50 million to my family's foundation as payment for his grandfather's debt. In return, we disappear. No lawsuits, no claims, no problems. Leo felt dizzy. $50 million. Said like it was pocket change. And if we refuse? Thomas asked. Victor's smile vanished. Then we tie this up in court for the next decade. Leo won't see a penny until he's an adult, assuming there's anything left by then. Is that really what you want for your son? Years of stress, legal fees, uncertainty. That's extortion, Ms. Foster said coldly. That's business, Victor countered. For a moment nobody spoke. The weight of the threat hung in the air like smoke. Leo could feel everyone waiting for him to panic, to cry, to break. But something strange happened inside him. Instead of fear, he felt anger. Clear, sharp, focused anger. These men had made his father run, had made his mother struggle, had turned his grandfather's gift into a weapon. And now they were standing here in this room, trying to scare a 10-year-old kid into giving them money they didn't earn and didn't deserve. Leo stepped forward, out of his mother's protective embrace. No, he said. Victor raised an eyebrow. Excuse me. I said no. Leo's voice was steady, stronger than he felt. My grandfather didn't owe you anything. And I'm not giving you anything either. Victor leaned back in his chair, studying Leo like he was an interesting puzzle. You're very brave for such a small boy, but bravery doesn't pay legal fees. Neither does fear, Leo replied. Thomas put a hand on Leo's shoulder. Pride and worry mixed in his expression. Victor stood up slowly. You're making a mistake. No, Ms. Foster said, stepping beside Leo. You're making one. By coming here and threatening a child, you've given us grounds for a restraining order and a harassment lawsuit. And believe me, Mr. Crane, I will bury you in paperwork until you wish you'd never heard the name Bennett. The cold-eyed man beside Victor shifted, but Victor raised a hand, stopping him. Careful, counselor, Victor said softly. Threats go both ways. That wasn't a threat, Mr. Harrison added, joining the line forming in front of Leo. That's a promise. This bank has recordings of everything that's happened in this room. If you pursue this frivolous claim, we'll make sure every detail goes public. How do you think that will look? A group of wealthy men trying to steal from a grieving child. Victor's jaw tightened. For the first time, his confidence cracked. This isn't over, he said. Yes, it is, Thomas said firmly. My father made sure of that. Every dollar in that account is legally protected, documented, and untouchable. He spent years making sure people like you couldn't get near it. So you can take your fake debts and your intimidation tactics and get out. Victor stared at Thomas, then at Leo. For a long moment, the room held its breath. Then Victor smiled again, cold, calculating. We'll see. He turned and walked toward the door, his two companions following. But at the threshold, he paused and looked back at Leo. Enjoy your fortune, boy. Let's hope you live long enough to spend it. The door closed behind them. The moment they were gone, Karen pulled Leo into a crushing hug. Oh God, baby, you were so brave. So brave. Leo's hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. Are they really gone? For now, Ms. Foster said, already on her phone. But I'm filing for a restraining order immediately. And I'm notifying the authorities about the threat. Thomas knelt in front of Leo again. You stood up to them. Do you know how incredible that is? Most adults wouldn't have done what you just did. I was scared, Leo admitted. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared, Thomas said gently. It means you do the right thing even when you are. Mr. Harrison exhaled heavily. We need to move quickly. Leo, your decision to lock the funds until you're 21 was smart. It means they can't touch it. But we need to get you and your family somewhere safe. Safe? Karen asked, her voice trembling. You mean they might actually? They won't, Miss Foster said firmly. Because we're going to make sure Leo is protected. Legally, physically, every way possible. Leo looked around at all these adults, his parents, the lawyers, the bankers, who had, in the span of one afternoon, become his shields. What happens now? He asked quietly. Ms. Foster sat down across from him. Now we set up the foundation you wanted. We put protections in place. We make sure that when you turn 21, everything your grandfather built will be waiting for you, safe and sound. And my family. Your family will be protected too, Mr. Harrison promised. New security systems, legal safeguards, everything you need. Thomas took Leo's hand. And I'll be there. Every day. I'm done hiding. Karen wiped her eyes, smiling through tears. We're going to be okay, sweetheart. All of us. For the first time since walking into this building, Leo felt something shift inside him. Not fear, not confusion, but something that felt almost like hope. Can we start the foundation tomorrow? Leo asked. I don't want to wait. Ms. Foster smiled. We'll start today. And they did. 3 months later, Leo stood in front of a community center in Brooklyn. It was a small building, nothing fancy, with peeling paint and windows that needed washing. But inside, something beautiful was happening. The sign above the door read, The Robert Bennett Foundation, where every kid deserves tomorrow. Leo wore new clothes now, not expensive but clean and comfortable. His mother stood beside him, wearing a dress that made her look younger, happier, less exhausted. And on his other side, holding his hand, was his father. Thomas had moved back in. Not immediately, not rushed, but slowly, carefully, rebuilding trust one day at a time. There were still hard conversations to have, still wounds to heal. But they were together. And that was a start. Ready? Karen asked Leo softly. Leo nodded. Ready. They walked inside together. The main room was filled with kids. Kids from the neighborhood, kids who came from the same kind of struggle Leo knew well. Kids whose shoes had holes, whose backpacks were held together with tape, whose eyes carried worries that children shouldn't have to carry. But today, those eyes were bright with excitement. Ms. Foster had helped Leo create something special. Not a handout. Not charity that made people feel small. But a program that gave kids real opportunities. After-school tutoring. Arts and music classes. Sports equipment. School supplies. Mentorship from local volunteers. And for families who needed it, help with groceries, rent, medical bills. The kind of help that didn't come with shame, just dignity. A young woman with kind eyes approached them. Her name was Patricia, and she was the foundation's director. Leo had interviewed her himself, asking questions Ms. Foster had helped him prepare. They're so excited to meet you, Patricia said to Leo. I'm excited to meet them too, Leo replied. Patricia led him to the front of the room. The kids quieted down, looking at Leo with curiosity. He was just a kid like them. Maybe that's why they listened. Hi, Leo said, his voice a little shaky at first. My name is Leo, and I want to tell you something important. Dozens of young faces watched him. A few months ago, I found out my grandfather left me something. Something big. And I had to make a choice about what to do with it. He took a breath, remembering that day in the bank. The fear, the confusion, the moment he decided who he wanted to be. I could have kept it all for myself. I could have bought a big house and fancy cars and all the things people think make you happy. But my grandfather taught me something. He said that money doesn't make you rich. Your heart does. A little girl in the front row smiled. So I decided to use what he gave me to help kids like you. Like me. Because I know what it's like to wear shoes with holes in them. I know what it's like to be hungry and scared and to feel like nobody sees you. Leo's voice grew stronger. But I see you. And I want you to know that you matter. You deserve good things. You deserve chances. You deserve people who believe in you. The room was completely silent now, hanging on every word. This place, Leo continued, gesturing around the room, is for you. Everything here is for you. The computers, the books, the classes, the sports equipment. All of it. And it's not because I feel sorry for you. It's because I know you're going to do amazing things. You just need someone to give you a chance. One of the older boys raised his hand. Why did you do this? You could have done anything. Leo smiled. Because my grandfather told me something before he died. He said, "A heart that helps is worth more than a hand that takes." And I want to have that kind of heart. Applause started, quiet at first, then louder. The kids stood up, clapping, some of them crying, all of them feeling seen in a way maybe they hadn't before. After the speech, Leo spent hours just talking to kids. Learning their names, hearing their stories, listening to their dreams. There was a boy who wanted to be a scientist. A girl who loved to draw. A kid who wanted to be a chef. Another who wanted to be a teacher. Leo made a promise to each of them. I'm going to check in on you. I'm going to watch you grow. And when you do something amazing, I'm going to be there cheering the loudest. As the sun began to set and families started to leave, a little girl approached Leo shyly. She couldn't have been more than 7, with dark braids and eyes that looked too serious for her age. Are you really going to come back? She asked quietly. Leo knelt down to her level. I promise. Every month I'm going to be here. Why? Because you're important, Leo said simply. And important people deserve to have someone show up for them. The little girl hugged him suddenly, fiercely. Leo hugged her back, feeling something warm and full expand in his chest. When she pulled away, she was smiling. Thank you. You're welcome. That night, as Leo rode home in the car with his parents, he stared out the window at the city lights. His father was driving. His mother sat in the back with him, her hand resting on his. You did something really special today, Thomas said, glancing at Leo in the rearview mirror. It felt good, Leo admitted. Better than I thought it would. Karen squeezed his hand. Your grandfather would be so proud of you, sweetheart. So incredibly proud. Leo thought about his grandfather. About the way he used to sit on the porch and tell stories. About how he always had time to listen, even when Leo's questions were silly or when his problems seemed small. I miss him, Leo said quietly. I know, Karen replied, her voice thick with emotion. I miss him too. But you know what? Thomas added. He's not really gone. Every time you help someone, every time you choose kindness over selfishness, every time you stand up for what's right, he's right there with you. Leo nodded, feeling tears prick his eyes. But they weren't sad tears. They were the kind that come when you realize you're exactly where you're supposed to be. When they got home to their new apartment, small but safe, in a better neighborhood, Leo went to his room and pulled out the letter his grandfather had written. The one Miss Foster had read that day in the bank. He read it again, slowly this time, absorbing every word. At the bottom, in his grandfather's shaky handwriting, was a line Leo hadn't noticed before. The measure of wealth isn't what you keep. It's what you give away. And Leo, I know you will give the world more than it ever gave you. I believe in you. Always. Leo folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the drawer next to his bed. Then he pulled out a notebook and started making a list. Kids who needed winter coats. Families who needed help with heating bills. Schools that needed books and computers. Community centers that needed funding. The list grew longer. And with each item, Leo felt his purpose grow clearer. He wasn't just a kid with money anymore. He was a kid with a mission. A kid who understood that real power isn't about what you have, it's about what you do with it. 6 months later, the foundation had grown beyond anything Leo imagined. 3 community centers now, partnerships with 12 schools, over 500 kids enrolled in programs, mentorship initiatives, scholarship funds, emergency assistance for families in crisis. And Leo was at the center of it all, learning, growing, becoming the person his grandfather always knew he could be. The threats from Victor Crane had faded. Ms. Foster's legal work had been flawless, building walls of protection around Leo's inheritance that no one could penetrate. The restraining order was still in effect, and word had spread in certain circles. The Bennett kid wasn't an easy target. He had lawyers, security, and a network of people who believed in him. But more than that, he had something Victor and men like him would never understand. He had purpose. He had love. He had a heart that chose to help instead of hoard. One Saturday afternoon, Leo was at the Brooklyn Community Center, helping set up for a talent show the kids had organized. He was carrying boxes of decorations when he heard a familiar voice. "Need some help." He turned to see a girl about his age, with dark braids and a bright smile. It was the little girl who had hugged him on opening day. Her name was Jasmine. "Sure," Leo said, smiling back. "Grab that box over there." They worked together, hanging streamers and setting up chairs. As they worked, Jasmine talked about school, about the art class she was taking through the foundation, about how she wanted to be an animator someday. "You know," she said as they taped up a banner, "you changed my life." Leo stopped, looking at her. "What do you mean?" "Before this place opened, I thought I didn't matter. I thought kids like me didn't get chances. But you proved that wrong. You made me believe I could do something big." Leo felt his throat tighten. "You always could. I just helped you see it." "Exactly," Jasmine said. "And that's everything." That evening, during the talent show, Leo sat in the audience with his parents. Kids sang, danced, told jokes, performed magic tricks. Some were polished. Some were rough around the edges. But every single one of them was brave. Every single one of them was trying. And when it was over, when the applause died down and families started to leave, Patricia pulled Leo aside. "I need to show you something," she said, leading him to her office. On her desk was a folder filled with letters. Dozens of them. Handwritten notes from kids and parents. "These came in this week," Patricia explained. "I thought you should read some." Leo opened the first one. It was from a mother thanking the foundation for helping with her son's glasses. He could see clearly for the first time in 2 years. The next was from a teenager who got a scholarship to a summer science program. She wrote that it was the first time anyone had invested in her dream. Another from a father who didn't have to choose between paying rent and feeding his kids because the foundation's emergency fund helped his family through a crisis. Letter after letter. Story after story. Lives changed, hope restored, futures made possible. Leo set the letters down, overwhelmed. "I had no idea." "This is what you did, Leo," Patricia said gently. "This is the difference you made." Leo wiped his eyes. "It's not me. It's my grandfather. It's everyone who helps. It's you," Patricia interrupted firmly. "Yes, you had help. Yes, you had resources. But you made the choice. At 10 years old, when you could have chosen comfort and safety and luxury, you chose to help others. That's who you are. And that matters more than any amount of money ever could." Leo looked at the letters again, feeling the weight and the lightness of them at the same time. "Can I keep these?" he asked. "They're yours," Patricia said. Every word. That night, Leo added the letters to a box he kept in his closet. A box of memories, of moments that mattered. His grandfather's letter. Photos from the foundation's opening. Drawings kids had made for him. Thank you cards. Report cards from students who were succeeding now. It was his real treasure. Not the numbers in a bank account, but the proof that kindness created ripples. That one person's choice could change 100 lives. That a 10-year-old boy in thrift store sneakers could walk into a tower and walk out with something more valuable than money. He walked out with purpose. Epilogue. 8 years later. Leo Bennett was 18 now. Taller, older, but still carrying that same heart that chose to help instead of hoard. The foundation had expanded to 15 cities. Thousands of kids had been served. Scholarships had been awarded. Families had been lifted out of crisis. Community centers thrived. And through it all, Leo remained involved, not as a distant benefactor, but as someone who showed up, who listened, who remembered names and dreams. He'd just graduated high school. Valedictorian. Full scholarship offers from a dozen universities. But he'd chosen to stay local, to attend a state school, to remain close to the work that mattered. In 3 years, when he turned 21, the full inheritance would become available to him. $468 million, grown through careful investment to nearly $600 million. But Leo already knew what he'd do with it. Not all of it. He'd set aside enough to take care of his family to secure their future. But the rest. It would go toward expanding the foundation, creating more programs, helping more kids. Because that's what his grandfather wanted. That's what his heart wanted. And Leo had learned that when those two things aligned, you didn't question it. You just followed. One evening, Leo visited his grandfather's grave. He did this often, usually alone, usually when he needed to think. He sat on the grass beside the headstone and pulled out the worn letter he still carried with him everywhere. "I did it, Grandpa," he said softly. "I chose the path you hoped I would. And you were right. It's been hard sometimes. Scary sometimes. But it's been the most meaningful thing I've ever done." The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment, Leo could almost hear his grandfather's voice. "I knew you would, son. I always knew." Leo smiled, tears on his cheeks. "I'm going to keep going. For as long as I can. For as many kids as I can reach. Because you taught me that wealth isn't what you have. It's what you give." He stood up, placed his hand on the headstone for a moment, then walked back to his car where his parents were waiting. As they drove home, Leo thought about that day 8 years ago. The day he walked into Sterling Financial Tower. The day everything changed. He thought about the scared 10-year-old he'd been, and the young man he'd become. And he realized something important. The money didn't change him. The choice did. The choice to help instead of hoard. The choice to listen instead of ignore. The choice to believe that every person, no matter how small, how poor, how overlooked, deserved a chance. That choice changed everything. Not just for him, but for every life he touched. And that, more than any number in any account, was the real fortune his grandfather had left him. So let me ask you something. If you were given that choice, between keeping everything for yourself or using it to help others, what would you choose? I hope Leo's story reminds you that we all have something to give. Maybe not millions of dollars, but something. Kindness. Time. Attention. Belief in someone who's lost belief in themselves. Because real wealth isn't measured in bank accounts. It's measured in lives changed, in hope restored, in futures made possible. Leo understood that at 10 years old. And the world became a better place because of it. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear from you. Comment below and tell me, what's one way you can help someone this week? Let's create a ripple of kindness together. Thank you for listening to Leo's story. I hope it inspired you as much as it inspired me to tell it.